as Christian developers, we should be thinking about, taking dominion over the world, and creating in the image of our Creator. Developers, more than anyone else, I would argue, have the opportunity to greatly affect how humans live. It's developers who are building everything. Architects work for the developer. So the developer says, hey, this is either going to be pretty or I just want a box, and the architect's going to do it. Cities respond to the developers. Builders work for the developers. They're just going to build the plans that are there. So developers are really the people that are visioning, how our built environment is growing and affecting us. And I think that's one thing that we want to be doing with Woodbury is we want to see Moscow continue to grow. We've greatly benefited from Moscow. We love Moscow. My dad, my family, myself, and we want more people to be able to experience that. And we want to be thoughtful in how we continue to develop that, doing it in a sustainable, beautiful way that really enhances people's living. So I liked a lot of things that Andrew is saying, because as the developer, you have the opportunity to influence people's everyday lives. You get to influence, how they live in their house, the routines that they have, how their kids grow up, the parks that they go to or don't go to, the amenities they get to use, the social outlets they get to use. And so it's really a holistic approach of thinking about how do we create a human-centric environment that's really benefiting whoever moves into this place. I think as Christian developers, the main thing I would say is, do you have a mentality of taking or giving? Because there's a lot of developers out there that have this kind of rape and pillage mindset of, there's a lot of equity here for me to grab. They'll come in, they'll do a project, and they take their money and they leave. And a couple of years later, the project is faceless. It's not really, no one takes pride in it anymore. So as Christians, knowing that we're trying to build things that last, how do we go in and instead of taking equity, give it, build it, make sure that there's value there that's going to last beyond just the money you're going to make while you're doing it. You have to make money as a developer, or else you can't keep doing it.
Right.
But that should be our main point. It is really a ministry in that sense of, how can I better other people's lives and create value?
Are there some practical things that you're thinking about in terms that are high priorities for your guys' work, like that might, again, in addition to just making room for people to come to Moscow, you're also trying to impact the community and let's shepherd people this direction? Or are there practical things that you guys are really wanting to prioritize?
Absolutely. We'll probably touch on this later, but all housing in one sense is affordable housing just by giving supply to the market, So
correct.
The Woodbury product definitely is, it's probably middle to upper class. We're trying to provide product types for all demographics. So we have cottages, there are 1,500 square feet, and townhomes, all the way up to estates and half-acre lots and that type of thing.
Okay.
But as far as what we're trying to provide, this is a little history lesson here. But going back about 100 years. Everyone throughout human history, well, this is longer than 100 years.
We're young Earth around here, but not
that was pretty long.
100 years at the beginning of time.
Yeah.
People have lived in cities, and that's really where the growth has happened. There's been nomadic tribes, but cities is where it's at. And then with the invention of the car and the industrialization of the cities, cities started to become places you didn't really want to live in. I mean, talk about serious actual environmental concerns. There's a lot of toxins and stuff like that, and cities started working to zoning, and because of the car, it allowed people to start moving out into the suburbs.
Right.
Suburbs became a thing. Zoning became a thing. And that was great. I mean, it really, from the 40s, started in the 30s, and from the 40s on, I mean, for the last 80 years, we've just been booming in the suburban sprawl.
Zoning was great?
There are aspects of zoning that were helpful. There's a lot of aspects of zoning that weren't great. Yeah. But that suburban sprawl has allowed us to grow in the way that we've grown. But I think 80 years later, we can look back at, okay, this is kind of a low quality of life. We're so car dependent. We've allowed the car to dominate how we build and design and engineer.
You spend so much time in the car.
You spend so much time in the car, and
Not in the house.
So and so what we're trying to do is bring that back to how do humans actually want to live, In Moscow, it's not that hard. I mean, you're in a 5-minute drive of anywhere. You don't spend a ton of time in the car, but even still, how do you lessen your trips every single day? So there's a school of thought called New Urbanism, and one of the designs is it's called traditional neighborhood development, and that's what we're doing at Woodbury. It's the idea of you want everything that you really need within a 5-minute walk. So people will go to work, they go to home, and then they usually have one other place. It's kind of like a social outlet. Sometimes it's church for people, but oftentimes it's the pub down the street, the coffee shop, whatever it is. They can go somewhere and meet someone. They need groceries, they need milk and eggs. And so we got approved by the city of Moscow to do a central business district. It's in the middle of Woodbury. And we have everything designed to be walkable, front porch communities, rear loaded, taking the cars off the streets and really making a pedestrian dominant environment so that pedestrians, encouraging people being active and walking around. So that's one way that you enhance people's lives, just like that. Making sure that they spend less time in the car so they can get everything they need right there. And I'd say the other aspect of that is just, really, you can inspire people with design and architecture. I mean, it's a lot easier to look at the negative effects, but look at any public housing project. There's a gray, faceless, void building, and that
Tiki-takis.
The people that live there take that identity. There's no pride. There's no purpose. That might as well just throw graffiti on the wall and throw trash on the ground.
It made it look better.
Add a little color at least. Yeah. I mean, that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But humans, I think getting back to the theology of there's a development aspect that we can talk about, and then the theology of just housing and home. People want a home. Homes are good things, and they really show our identity. I think you can be prideful about it, but also it's inspiring. It's like, this is where I live. I want to make this home. People have that tendency.
Yeah.